deadly massacres on October 7, 2023, and Israel's mass killings in Gaza have marked a horrific turning point in the Middle East.
1, 2, 3, 4, we don't want your bloody war!
Here in Australia, we might be over 12,000 kilometres away, but this country is also home to the largest per capita population of Holocaust survivors outside of Israel, and our third most spoken language is Arabic. Needless to say, for many, this is personal and tensions are high. Antisemitism is on the rise, and so is Islamophobia. Palestinians, Jews and activists have lost work, been doxxed, verbally abused, sometimes attacked.
I've spent a lot of time just feeling very paralysed and frozen. I'm somebody who likes to take action, and I've been very stuck because I feel, what can I do?
Online feuds are intense. Relationships are strained, loved ones are becoming estranged, and some people are even being marked out as traitors by their own community.
Many times I've been accused of being a traitor and a self-hating Jew because I wasn't supporting the actions of the Israeli government.
Because it gives them a voice where they don't have one.
For me, it is much more important now to walk over to the other side and go, how much do you know? Like, where are you coming from? Why do you believe that?
I think I want to have a conversation about how we in Australia can make sure that the forces of hatred that are arrayed against Israel and against the Jewish people don't get a foothold here.
In all of this, is conversation, especially with the other side, even possible? Can you do it without hurting other people? And if so, at what cost? I'm off to Sydney's leafy North Shore to meet two women who were neighbours, then friends, in not just one, but two different streets. Corinne is Jewish, Selena Palestinian, and for about 15 years their friendship blossomed as they learned more about each other and their families' past. But then October 7 happened, and neither knew what to say to each other. October 7 happens. There are retaliatory attacks that are devastating for Palestinians. What was the impact on your friendship on that day?
I was in a really bad place. I was on a complete emotional roller coaster. So it was just, straight away, oh my gosh, this is horrible, and also thinking forward to the retaliation.
Yeah.
What were you bracing yourself for?
Oh, I thought she might not want to, might not want to see me. That it would be too painful. She would be angry, or I just didn't know.
Yeah.
So it was a complete relief when actually we met and we just hugged. And then we talked and we walked and we talked.
It was through a common love for growing vegetables that Corinne first met Selena's dad. Mike was a big fan of spicy food.
So Mike used to enjoy my chilies. And we started talking, and he told me the story of his family.
1948, my father and his family were present for the Nakba, and that's where 750,000 Palestinians were displaced. Many lost their lives. So I have family everywhere, scattered everywhere. They were told, leave here, it's not safe to be here. They left. They never were able to return back to their house. They were never compensated for their house. And when they did go back one day, the oldest son went back, and a Jewish family was living there, and he wasn't even allowed to go in and view the house. It was gone. So my dad doesn't talk about it a lot, and neither does his family. I think there's a lot of unspoken trauma.
I told him a little bit about the background of my family, that they had gone through the Holocaust.
When Corinne was a schoolgirl in France in the 80s, the country was still coming to terms with the devastating impact of World War II.
As I was growing up, I was really obsessed with the Holocaust, with pictures. We had books in the library of pictures, and I used to study them very, very carefully and wonder, how did this happen?
Later, she would come across photos of her ancestors who were victims of the genocide in Europe.
They were taken by the Nazis. The Nazis like to document everything, and they took photos of them in the Warsaw Ghetto. I feel very strongly that my position now against what is happening, what the Israeli government is doing, is very much linked to that history and to the history of my family, most of whom ended up burnt in Treblinka in Poland after they were gassed. This history has given me a sense of responsibility.
But many Jews in Australia don't see it that way. I'm about to meet a man with very different views who was radicalised after witnessing the response to October 7 at rallies here at the Opera House. On the night of October 9, Mark Leach found himself on the TV news as one of the few Jewish people to brave the rally that was overwhelmingly pro-Palestinian. Police warned them away to the other side of the quay.
We want to stand with Israel against the genocidal attack from Hamas, and we want to stand with everybody who supports peace. What I found so offensive was that the blood had not yet dried in southern Israel after the greatest massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. And the whole world watched this eruption of visceral, primal Jew hatred in the very heart of Sydney.
Mark's mother was Jewish, a German Holocaust survivor whose family fled to Africa.
I always say I identify as 100% Jewish, 100% Christian, and just bad at maths.
Last year, Mark quit his job as an Anglican priest to advocate full-time against the rise of anti-Semitism.
Now I travel around the country trying to build our commitment as Australians to a country free of hate. For some Christians, I'm not Christian enough. For some Jews, I'm not Jewish enough. So I feel like that's put me in a great position here in Australia in this season to do the work that I'm currently doing.
Mark says he understands why so many Jewish people are feeling unsafe since October 7. He and his daughter have had experience of being abused on a university campus.
How can you talk to my daughter like that?
Oh, easy.
Yeah, why?
Because you're a baby Zionist killer. Get out of my face.
I'm a baby Zionist.
There's been a 343% increase in anti-Semitism in 2024 versus 2023. This is exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing, because this is not Australia. That level of irrational hatred is what we have to ensure does not continue to grow in this country.
In Israel, there are ongoing attempts to overcome the age-old hatreds and fear. Since 2015, the progressive movement Standing Together has attracted both Jews and Palestinians to advocate side by side for peace and justice. Irene is from a Russian Jewish family who spent time in Israel before coming to Australia when she was 12.
The 7th of October was horrific. People died in terrible ways. These are war crimes. Israel is also committing terrible war crimes. After the 7th of October, I was told that there was a group starting here, which was Sydney Friends of Standing Together, and I was absolutely going to be in that group. At that moment, it was a real need because the polarization was terrible.
Today, the group is taking to the streets in protest at the resumption of the bombing in Gaza. Sonya is an Australian Palestinian who's been with them since its beginning. Her social media feed is again being flooded with the stories of hundreds more dead.
I'm just so heartbroken and it's so gut-wrenching. You know, when you open up your social media and suddenly you're getting all those horrific scenes again after having a break.
Sonya grew up with a Christian Palestinian father and an Irish Catholic Anglo mum. She remembers loving her grandma's cooking and wishing she had her recipes.
Children were being killed, children were being starved,
in the ruins of Gaza.
Like Selena, her father also survived the Nakba.
It was always difficult to talk to Dad about this stuff. Dad was a softie, like he, you know, if I tried to talk to him about this stuff, he would just, tears would well up. And so I'm really glad he's not around. I'm really glad. I think it would have been too much.
Like Sonya, Aboud is a regular at the pro-Palestinian rallies.
Assad Shakur once said, nobody in the world, nobody in history has ever gotten their freedom by appealing to the moral sense of the people who are oppressing them.
Aboud is Palestinian, with relatives still in Gaza.
My dad has 2 cousins who are there and luckily so far have survived. We hear about how they're going and stories directly from them. You just don't understand how it can be happening and the world is not making it stop. I mean, if anything, the world is allowing it to continue and providing support for Israel.
As well as absorbing the daily horrors from Gaza, Aboud has had up-close experience of the rise in Islamophobic attacks. He was in Adelaide with friends for a pro-Palestinian picket when a drunk AFL fan lashed out in a hotel lift.
Get out the way. Get out the way. Okay.
He pushed me and he started to say things like, you know, you support those Muslim terrorists, C-word. He just started punching people. I saw him hit one of my friends. He hit her 3 times in the face. Another friend of mine had the keffiyeh wrapped around their neck and he pulled on it.
Everyone out! Everyone out! Everyone out! Kill everyone of you!
Aboud and another friend managed to hold the man down until police arrived. He was later convicted on 5 counts of assault and fined more than $2,000 by an Adelaide court. That sounds terrifying to me.
It was very shocking, but also didn't surprise me given how the mainstream media and politicians have demonized Palestinians and supporters of Palestine.
The official launch of Sydney Friends of Standing Together draws a crowd of about 200. Their hope is to bring together Australians who support peace in Israel and Palestine. But there's a mix of excitement and apprehension. Word has got around that protesters may turn up from the BDS movement that promotes boycotts and sanctions against Israel.
I was really nervous going to that first meeting, like really nervous. Like even my kids were saying to me, like, please be careful, Mum, please be careful. You don't know who's going to be there.
The night kicks off with a video from Standing Together Israel. It doesn't go down well with Aboud Shawish, who's turned up with a group of protesters to distribute pamphlets about the BDS boycott.
I had a panic attack when they first got up and I could see that they were not banking down and they were taking over the microphones and just being very aggressive. But I was shaking and sweating and I couldn't breathe.
I'm sorry, but I was told that I could read the statement after the welcome.
Straight after the welcome? Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Watching that intro video was enough to enrage people because they didn't even want to call it a genocide. They talk about releasing the hostages. What about the Palestinian hostages? Let me speak. I am a Palestinian!
How comfortable would you feel watching footage from the day and giving me some insight in terms of what was going on for you?
Yeah, sure. That's fine.
So
thanks.
I wasn't there, but you were.
Yeah.
Tell me what you see and tell me what you remember.
Anyone who supports
Aboud.
the Israeli occupation forces,
Aboud.
may they all get justice. May Palestinians get their retribution, which is liberty across all of Palestine. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free!
Good, thank you.
I hear like anger in your voice, and I hear a lot of pain. How hard was that for you to do?
I guess it was very emotional because it is a very hard time, and you're seeing every day massacre after massacre of your people. You're hearing just these terrible stories of people just being murdered in the worst way. Like there's a story of Hind Rajab, a 6-year-old girl who was in the car with her cousin and their family, and she was left in that car with her dead family members for hours, and paramedics were sent to rescue her, and they never came back. She could have been rescued, but she was murdered. And the recording of her talking to the Red Crescent is just like etched in my mind. So when we saw that video, we didn't go there to scare people, but a genocide is happening. And I'm not saying that excuses that people can act in whatever way they want, but I'm terrified that people still support Israel.
Israel continues to deny involvement in Hind Rajab's death. Independent experts with the UN have denounced those denials as unacceptable. What is clear to me is why Palestinians like Aboud are feeling anger, horror, and grief. I feel it too. But I also know there are Jewish people for whom the accusation of a genocide in Gaza really is a bridge too far, and Israel itself continues to deny any claim of genocide. The word genocide is so loaded, especially for Jewish people who have survived genocides and pogroms, the Holocaust. And yet there are human rights organisations that say that what is going on in Gaza is tantamount to genocide. How does that land for you?
I think unless you change the meaning of the word genocide, there is no plausible case for that accusation being true. There are people being killed, but for it to be genocide, there needs to be a specific intent on behalf of the aggressor to kill in whole or in part a particular ethnic or religious group.
Tonight, Sydney Friends of Standing Together have invited me to a workshop on how to have difficult conversations with people you might seriously disagree with. Overseeing the session is Shoshana Fair, who has a 30-year career in conflict resolution and mediation.
So this little piece is called Sitting Together, because this is where we get to sit and reflect on what we're doing, talking to people out in the world and advocating.
I know that Standing Together is a group that is often maligned within Israel and then often criticised and boycotted by some Palestinian activists. So I can only imagine the conversations that are had amongst other people in your own lives, even about being here tonight.
I often feel that I'm too progressive for the mainstream Jewish community, and I'm too Jewish for some of the left and LGBTQ plus spaces that I normally find comfort in. And
It's on one of these nights that Sonya first met Nikki Fraser.
She's lovely.
It's that simple.
Yeah, it's that simple.
Yeah. We've got so much in common.
Yeah.
Completely apart from all of this.
Yeah.
And yeah, we like each other.
Yeah.
Nikki grew up Jewish in London, came to Australia in 1988. She isn't religious, but earlier in her life had close ties to Israel.
My great-grandmother moved to Israel, quite early on and had an ice cream shop in Jaffa. I had my first birthday in Israel. I went at least every year for probably the first 20 years or so of my life. We went to synagogue mostly on high holy days, weddings and mitzvahs. We had Shabbat dinner every Friday night. But really for me, it was much less about the religion as it was about the culture, the traditions, the family, the community.
Nikki and Sonya have both taken Shoshana's training to heart and been conducting their own private conversation sessions outside the group.
this conflation between the government and Israelis and Israel. It drives me mad because it just causes so much division and more, it just fuels that disconnect. And I find that when all you're doing is criticising the other and judging the other and shouting at the other, everybody digs in harder on their side, right? And to me, it's not about, are you pro-Israel, are you pro-Palestine? It's, if you're pro-peace, surely we have to have these conversations. We have to get to know each other.
Yeah, but I think those reactions are totally justified because until...
You know, there's a lot of things we don't agree on, but we like each other, we can communicate it and listen to each other and, you know, start to actually understand a bit more about what's shaping our views from our experiences.
When you're seeing shredded bodies and babies, you can't think beyond that. Like the anger and the trauma is so full on that, yeah, I totally get why they're angry, and I'm not upset that they're angry because we need that energy to try and make the world stop this.
I think, you know, we've both got such totally different narratives about the past and the history that's led up to it, right? So that's where it's interesting to kind of have these conversations. I really think both sides see themselves as the victim.
Back at the mentoring session, Nikki and Sonya are asked to report back about how they went.
In that last conversation that we had, I ended up getting quite upset. Did you notice?
Tell me more.
Yeah. I think what it is that for Jewish people, you carry the weight of the entire persecution of centuries of your people. So when you come to the conversation, you're coming with all that weight. But for us, that's not relevant. It's not, we're sympathetic and we can be compassionate and we can have empathy, but it's not part of our history. We didn't participate, it's not part of our narrative. So all our narrative is, you came, you pushed us off our land, and we want to resolve it.
I guess my hope from this program is that maybe more Palestinians will come and join us and, you know, can have, you know, actually engage a bit more. Yeah.
I think that's hard for Palestinians right now, though. I think that will come later. I think, you know, I don't agree that Israel has the right to exist. So, that's like a major bone of contention between us. But then I do understand why you need feel like you need a safe place, but you haven't created that either. So, you know, I think it does need to be looked at really critically. Was that controversial, anyone?
Not at all.
Yeah, the last bit was.
Of all the issues raised tonight, it feels like everything comes back to the problem of two people, one land. And I'm keen to know what someone like Mark Leach would make of people questioning Israel's very right to exist.
I think that it is quite clear under international law that Israel has a right to exist, that the Jewish people are the original inhabitants of the land with a historic claim to the land. I just think it's wrong. I think nation states are always born through conflict. Tragic, it didn't have to happen. And I think that as a Jewish person, it's existential. There is nowhere else for Jewish people to go.
How are you processing watching the horrors in the Middle East play out at the moment?
War is terrible, but what Israel is doing, what the IDF is doing, is an unbelievably restrained urban war to try and do two extremely difficult things: defeat terrorists who are ideologically committed to your destruction, and then recover hostages. And do that under the full glare of world spotlight.
After all the back and forth and colliding views, it feels like everyone talks about conversation, but very few are prepared to come to the table. And even if and when they do, it's such small steps in what is seemingly an impossibly long road, a road that is littered with conflicting truths and fractured alliances. And meanwhile, the horrors in Gaza continue, seemingly without end.
The biggest impact for me has been with my family in Israel, and they're not talking to me anymore. And that's very, very difficult. And I can tell you that there are many people in the Jewish community that have worse situations than that have had tensions with their spouse, with their parents, with their children. And I think that's a great shame.
I've had this question all of my life: how did the Holocaust happen? How did people let this happen? And I've got my answer. Yeah. Because it's happening right now. There's always a reason not to speak up. You're scared of losing your job. You're scared of losing funding. You're scared of your kids being bullied. You're scared of creating division with your family. These very reasons were the same ones why people didn't speak up in the Holocaust. But we live in Australia. We don't live in Nazi Germany. So we have a special duty to speak up here.
While their rallies aren't the ones making the TV news, the beleaguered peace activists continue to speak up against the war.
We're doing something important here. We're creating a new community where we can cross the divisions that we've been told all our life we can't cross.
As my broken heart mourns the lives lost, especially in the last 18 months, today's action in support of the People's Peace Summit is more urgent than ever.
We're not born with an instinct to hate or be violent. But it should not only be a choice to actually reach out to each other and coexist. It should be our instinct.
What gives me hope is that we're doing something. At a very, very basic level, we can shift the dial that little bit, and then maybe that gets amplified. So I'm just advocating for talking, hoping, believing in each other's humanity.